Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Timeout with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azalina, I am Derek Cano. Thank you, as always, for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. And Joe, what do we have on tap for today?
Derek, we're going with one of our quote unquote longer shows. It's going to be a headline show as we've done these before. And we have a little bit of college football over the weekend. We have a little bit of the NFL. We're going to sprinkle in a little Major League Baseball because this is actually when the winter meetings will take place. And we're going to talk about that a little bit and more topics in our, I would say, like our second segment, as we're going to cover little current events happening and even a couple things happening today, actually. So, with that being said, Derek, you're going to kick us off, right? No pun intended.
So, for the first topic, yeah, we are getting into all different sports today. So, not one really jumped out amongst the others. So, we really just kind of went with a bunch of everything. So, over the weekend, Florida, the current number 6 team in the college football playoff rankings, went to Tennessee and played Tennessee Volunteers, who I guess have been a little disappointing this year. They were in the top 25, I believe, when we started the season. Currently, they are 2-6, so they're kind of struggling. But Florida went and beat Tennessee 31-19. Another big game from Kyle Trask, Joe, and again another game of not much of a run game, but they did what they needed to do in order to clinch their spot in the SEC championship game. They officially won the SEC East and set up a date in, I believe it'll be 1.5 weeks. It will be after next week against Alabama. Your thoughts on Florida, Joe, and setting up their date with Alabama?
Well, it's funny that you said, it's funny that you commented and said how, like, they just won the East, and that's all well and good, but this time there's no participation trophy. This is the real deal for them. They're getting the beast. Like, Alabama has shown us year after year under Nick Saban what this team is capable of. And two names are really key on here is Najee Harris, the running back, is an absolute monster. He reminds me of Derrick Henry, um, the Tennessee Titans right now, and also quarterback Mac Jones, who stepped in for uh, Tua, who had a great year last year, but this guy's throwing the ball over the place and hitting receivers left and right. So I keep saying it. I'm going to continue to say it. The national championship runs through Tuscaloosa, and until somebody beats them, there's not much else to say. Florida's not going to beat them, and it's going to be Alabama and I think in the national championship. But that's why they play the games
No,
there.
yeah, now it's odd that now Florida does have a game this week against LSU. It's odd to say, well, LSU, but LSU is really not that good this year. They are 3-5, so
Where's
it
the
should
game?
be. It's at home for Florida,
And
so
that's a win because I don't. And again,
shouldn't have
LSU
much
could,
of an issue.
yeah, they could spoil their season, right? But if it was at Death
Mm,
Valley under the lights, I would say, all right, mark it down because LSU's really good at home. But this team's not as talented. I think Jamar Chase hasn't played the whole season. He's a big receiver. They got this quarterback, really hasn't been that great. Tough year for LSU, but I'm not going to be sorry for them. They won the championship last year. So sometimes you got to
mhm.
step aside and there's better teams. But yeah, that's one big thing in college football. What about the Indiana Hoosiers defeating the Wisconsin Badgers over the weekend? Um, and the key thing there is they were without their running quarterback in Penix Jr. and it was a 14-6 victory for Indiana. But Jack Tuttle came in, the 6'4" sophomore, who's 13 of 22 and 2 touchdowns. Derek, Indiana's going to be on the outside because they're 12. But what do you think about them, in a month from now? Do you think they're going to maybe win a bowl game? Indiana hasn't been in a bowl game in a long time.
Well, So, and hey, that's a great win. Wisconsin is always now. I mean, Wisconsin's kind of had their season really jacked up this year. Was only their fourth game. I think it is the least amount in the Big Ten right now because everyone else has at least played some games, but they had a couple they didn't get to play that were canceled. So, you know, the big thing is now they're talking about their game with Purdue here potentially being canceled, but another game that was canceled already was Ohio State and Michigan. If that is the case and Ohio State cannot find another team now, there have been rumblings if the Purdue game gets canceled with Indiana, does Indiana go or do they go to Indiana and play? Does Ohio State go there? Because without another game, it is in the rules that to play in the Big Ten championship game, you have to have played, I believe it's 6 games in conference, and Ohio State is at the end of their rope and they're 5-0, and Michigan canceled the game on them. So are they going to be able to find another team? And maybe Indiana is that team. That would be very interesting, Joe, if somehow, or even if they didn't have that game, Indiana is going to be in the championship game, the Big Ten championship now. If Ohio State doesn't find another game, that would probably be against Northwestern, who lost, I believe it's to Michigan State. Not a good win or a good
Right, no, not
loss,
a good
but
one.
I believe Northwestern is probably around 18, something like that. So it's not something to sneeze at. But if Indiana does somehow get Ohio State here this weekend and maybe beat them, I don't know. I don't see that. And then beating Northwestern, does that all of a sudden push Indiana into the championship talks? That's very interesting. Without that, another Ohio State win, even winning the Big Ten championship against Northwestern, I don't think that does it for them, Indiana. But a great season for Indiana. An upset over Penn State started it, and beat. How many times can they say that they've beaten Michigan and Penn State in the same season? That's pretty crazy. A close score against Ohio State. I don't know if it was technically that close. They really came back at the end of the game against Ohio State. So Indiana is a great team. But
where do you think, real quick, where do you think Indiana is at in the playoff rankings tonight at 7:00 on ESPN? Where do they fall? Because if they're in the top 10, then we have a controversy. But if they're outside of it, they came in at 12 on Saturday and they got to win.
They were number 12.
Yep.
And that's a big win. So let me just take a look at this real quick. Obviously, you're not worried about the top 4.
No, that's fine until
Texas A&M and Florida and Cincinnati aren't moving anywhere. I mean, even if they jump a couple, it's tough. Georgia didn't play again.
Yeah, Cincinnati's
so. Well, Cincinnati had their game canceled against Tulsa, which would have been their one chance to, because Tulsa, I believe, is in the top 25.
They are.
Well, they're definitely top 25. I don't know if they're ranked in the college football ranking, but
yeah, right. It's different
sometimes.
So A&M has a lot to say about this now. They really do.
Yeah.
And there was rumor too that could A&M play Ohio State, and if I'm Ohio State, I don't want that because that's Big Ten SEC. I don't care where the game's at. If A&M plays Ohio State and beats them, Ohio State's gone, and it better not matter about the Big Ten title. That would be, and this is something for even next week's show. But I'm sorry, if A&M, a one-loss A&M beats Ohio State, it's over. So I don't think they schedule that game.
I don't know what incentive Ohio State has to do that game besides because they can't get into the championship game regardless. It has to be a Big Ten game.
Right. In their minds, though, to get that win, and then mentally, I don't know. Right. This is a mess. This
It's
is a giant mess right now.
the only reason I would maybe do that is if I'm somehow worried that Florida beats Alabama in a close game,
It's another
then
one.
and then Clemson beats Notre Dame in a close game, you're thinking Alabama, Florida, Notre Dame, and Clemson. And then does
Yeah,
Ohio
you're
State drop
outside.
out?
Oh
Because
my
who have they
gosh.
beaten?
They really haven't beat
Everyone they've
anybody.
beaten. I mean, Indiana, and that was a close game, but Nebraska is trash. Penn State has been bad. Rutgers has been bad, and
In
Michigan
fairness,
State has been
though,
bad.
except for Clemson, though, Derek, Notre Dame hasn't beaten really anybody either.
Yeah.
I mean, North
Well,
Carolina, arguable. And again, this is all we could do this all night, but we might as well move on because
yeah,
let's leave
yeah.
it
We'll
there.
move on. So we'll jump ahead to a headline in the NFL, and maybe for some people who listen to this show, huge win for the New York Giants. We haven't really talked about the New York Giants much on this show. We've given the
Better.
Eagles a lot of love, but let's give a segment to the New York Giants going to our at least Final Four. I know we both at least had them into the NCAA NFC Championship game,
Yeah.
beating the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Without their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones did not play. Not sure what the word is on how long he's out, but behind the running of Wayne Gallman, 135 yards. Alfred back in time. Alfred Morris with 39 yards and 5 sacks on the defense. It's really been the defense this year, Joe, behind the Giants and pushing them to 5-7 now in the top of the division.
Yeah, sad to say that I don't have defensive stats here, but I will tell you right now that Goldman is an absolute. I don't know the right word. I'm not going to call him a beast, but he's really good, and he's been able to be like shifty as he runs. Watching him the last couple of weeks, it started against the Eagles. He started to get confidence. Now he played against Washington. He got more confidence, and here you go. He's got his team in a position to sit there and say one more win, and we're only one game away from 500 at this point. So they're right there at the top of the East, which isn't hard to win this division because it's not good.
Well,
But Colt McCoy had a very good day at 13 and 22 for 22 and 195 yards. And this guy's a former big time draft pick out of Texas. So Golden Tate, though, and I'm not trying to go homer here, but Notre Dame guy, 4 receptions, 30 yards. He had a pretty decent day. He didn't score, but listen, the Giants are going to win, as you said, their defense, and they didn't really let Russell Wilson go crazy. Matt Metcalf had his catches, held him scoreless, held Lockett scoreless. There's two of your big guys on the offensive side of the ball for Seattle. So, the Giants, they're peaking at the right time, Derek. Just
absolutely
peaking at the right time.
So I will say they had 5 sacks. Leonard Williams, who they brought over from the Jets, actually, 2.5 sacks. Jabril Peppers, good player out of Michigan, very versatile with a sack. They brought over Blake Martinez, who was a tackling machine for the Packers last year.
Right.
So he's the middle linebacker there. Hey, and you could do worse than Colt McCoy as a backup quarterback. He has some time in the NFL. It seems like they've really brought in experienced players. You have Alfred Morris, Dion Lewis, who was a good running back for the Patriots for some years, and they have some talent at receiver: Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, good tight end. Hey, it might only take one more win to win that division, and it's about sealed up. Washington, I will mention, with a big win at Pittsburgh, so it could be down to what. That's kind of crazy to think about the beginning of the season. I know people definitely did not have Washington or the Giants. It was definitely between Philadelphia and Dallas, but it may come down to Washington and the Giants. 3 out of 4 home games, Cardinals, Browns, and Cowboys. and then at the Ravens mixed in there. So it's not an easy schedule, but it might only take a win against the Cowboys and they have the division. But
True.
hey,
True.
they can keep up that defense. Good for the Giants. Awesome win. And it may lead to bigger things. Who knows?
Well, Derek, I'm gonna thank you on the air for saying that we could do some baseball today because I was itching to talk a little baseball. But this is an important subject right now. And the Major League Baseball has told teams straight up to operate under the assumption of no universal DH. Now, as I read that, I still question it. Does that mean the American League is still going to have a DH? Because it's a big topic here at the winter meetings as they're going on right now. Kyle Schwarber, rumored to New York and Anaheim, White Sox trying to get Michael Brantley possibly. This is why it's important to know. Marcell Ozuna could end over in the American League. He hasn't even played an inning in the American League. So what are your feelings? And I know we both covered it a little bit, so maybe, again, we don't have to take that long, but what if they don't do it universally? I don't want it in just the American League. I think that's a mistake.
And I think we both kind of put our thoughts into this before in various episodes that we want it, even if it's just the same in both. I'd rather it not be 1-1. If they want to make universal, if they want to get rid of DH completely and just have pitchers in AL and NL hit, okay, whatever. It's not my choice, but I would go with universal DH. I just don't think it's really unfair that, and you mentioned Marcell Ozuna, who's getting up in years, and we talked about with Phil a couple episodes ago. He's not really a defender anymore. He can't play that corner outfield position, so he's probably now going to be looking strictly American League because half the teams can't go for a guy like him. Nelson Cruz out of the Twins. He's been bopping the ball for years now without playing an inning in the outfield. So you could maybe a guy like Michael Brantley, maybe, who now maybe only be in the AL because he probably doesn't want to play in the outfield. I hate it. I don't know if it probably means that it'll definitely be in the AL, I'm sure, but I don't think it's completely set up. I know both sides, MLB and MLBPA, have to talk, but
bargaining next year too, that's a big thing. But even on my side of things, there's National League players now that are getting older, like Andrew McCutchen. He's probably better off to be in the American League. He can't run. The poor guy can't run anymore. He used to steal bases all the time. He has no wheels.
Yeah.
33 years old. It's going to happen, right? So that's a good topic, though. I'm glad we covered that for even if our fans want to hear more football. I'm still bringing the baseball.
Well, yeah, and stay tuned for that. So stuff could come out. But as of now, Joe said
we could break news, Derek.
Yeah, it seems like
news.
Universal DH will not be the case for this year, but stay tuned. For our last headline topic here, and we're going to jump back into college football. The number 5 team in the country, Texas A&M, and I think we talked about it last week that this was a tough game for them again, going to Auburn, but it was a very close game. They were losing 20-14 going into the last quarter, where they pulled out 17 points and ended up winning 31-20. A good performance by Kellen Mond, the starting quarterback for Texas A&M. But, Joe, I think more of the story is, so this obviously won't bump them down, I would think. They would still be the number 5, but that's it. That's it for Texas A&M. They don't actually, it looks like, their last game was canceled. They may be setting up a game that was canceled with Tennessee, but as we talked about earlier, Tennessee is not much of a competition these days. But the more thing is, Florida at number 6 has their chance to play Alabama. All the top 4 teams are kind of set. We talked about Ohio State and what their chances may be, but is this it for Texas A&M? If because they didn't go into Auburn and win big, was that their last chance to have a college football playoff spot?
I'm not a risk taker, but I'm gonna live by that here on this segment and say no, it's not it. I could say yes because I could say, oh, there's no way, and there's no way. There's just it's not gonna happen. But I have a feeling that Alabama is gonna end up blowing out Florida. So that's gonna eliminate Florida. I don't want to say this because I'm gonna get a lot of flack for it from many people, but what happens if Clemson takes Notre Dame to the woodshed? What happens if Clemson throws up 40-some points and Notre Dame can't score? Like, that's a problem because then there's going to be people and analysts out there saying Notre Dame doesn't deserve to be there because they didn't beat Trevor Lawrence and yada, yada, yada. No, there is ways for this to happen, but Ohio State either needs to not be in or Notre Dame would have to get blown out. I think that's the only two big-time scenarios. But let's be honest, A&M probably has about a 50% chance right
now. I don't know if I would give them even 50%, but I think you're absolutely right. But I mean, I really don't see Notre Dame getting blown out. But what do we call blown out? Do we call 3 touchdowns a blowout?
That would be trouble, though. That would be trouble.
But the fact that if they didn't beat anybody, okay, maybe then you got a case. But UNC is kind of loved in the college football rankings. They're up to number 17. They just
that's a good thing.
Put up a ton of points again. So I don't know. I think the only chance for Texas A&M is if they need Notre Dame to win again and bump Clemson down, or Ohio State if Ohio State has no other games, maybe, I don't know. I don't think they really give like how close the teams are to cracking the top 4, but really. I don't know if that win is good enough. I really don't.
I think too, though, the thing that scares me a little bit too is that Trevor Lawrence has to have a chip on his shoulder now. Like this is his last year, and he had to watch them lose in South Bend. Again, I keep saying it's going to be close, but I just have a feeling that Clemson gets the better of Notre Dame the first time, and then who knows? Maybe that sets up the rematch, or could set up Notre Dame and Alabama, and then Clemson and the other team. But Derek, this could change by next week. Something crazy might happen.
Yeah.
And we might be sitting here next Monday or Tuesday, and we're going to be going over another scenario. So
yeah. So I'll throw out the percentage. I'll throw out I'll go more 25% chance that Texas A&M gets in, and I think that's only if Clemson loses. Is how I think they slip in.
All right.
But Joe, we're moving on to a little game here. We're going to call fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank. And it's not a school game. We're not talking about math, English, science, or social studies. We're going to talk about sports still. All right. So BYU setting up a game at Coastal Carolina. But Derek, they lost. They lost. I have an answer for this, but I want to hear yours. What do we call that?
I went with gutsy. They didn't want to just lay back and accept that our record isn't good enough to get in, because it was kind of known based on the college football rankings. They were way down there. They weren't giving them any love. So hats off to BYU. I forget who Coastal Carolina, I believe it was Liberty, right? Who's also pretty high ranked, that Coastal Carolina was supposed to play. And BYU called and said, hey, we'll show up. We'll go and play. And hey, BYU lost, but not a lack of preparation. And, but hey, hats off to them for saying, you know what, we're gonna try it out. We're gonna fly across the country and we're gonna try to win this game, and maybe it'll give us something. I don't see it dropping them too far. I assume Coastal Carolina will jump above them now, but um, a very good team BYU is, um, and maybe even a Heisman contender at quarterback, Zach Wilson. So, yeah, hey, what do you call it for what's your word for BYU?
At first, and I get they set the game up. And number one, I want to say that I would love to see BYU play Florida in a bowl game. If that happens, I'll be so excited because I love to see BYU knock off Florida. I always root against the Gators usually, so that would be kind of cool to see. But no, I I was going to use ridiculous just because they did schedule it, but I listened to you and my brother even said to me yesterday, all these conferences they want to play these games. They got to schedule better. Well, I'm going to use stepping up, I guess, that they stepped up.
Hmm.
Just that they did what they had to do. They played a tough team apparently, and they lost.
Yeah.
So on the road too. So again, good for BYU. And yeah, Zach Wilson, if he's not at the Heisman ceremony, whatever that will look like this year, he might be at the award show, which I found out is going to be
Yeah.
after the at least after New Year's, I think, or something like that. But anyway, yeah. Well, BYU, their season's probably done except for a bowl game, but I'd like to see them play in SEC school,
Yeah.
and even if it's Georgia, I wouldn't mind seeing them beat them just to make people think BYU's still a pretty good football team.
Yeah, I really hope they don't do like a BYU versus Cincinnati or something. Like let the teams play because and as we talked about earlier a few weeks ago, how I was on board with extending the football playoff to eight teams. Um, this is one of their chances to prove that they do belong. Put them up against a strong SEC team or a strong Big Ten team and see how they play out. If they end up beating them, maybe you got to take them more seriously in years down the road. But
Well said.
yeah.
Very well said.
So our next fill in the blank, Joe, we're going to jump to back into the NFL. Fill in the blank. The Cleveland Browns are the blank best team in the AFC after a very convincing win this weekend to put them up to 9-3. They went to Tennessee and won. By default, since Pittsburgh is 11-1, they are second in the NFC North, but very strong team. What number are they in the AFC? Cleveland Browns.
Well, I didn't have number. I could do that, but I actually have them as the most underrated team in the NFL.
Okay.
I mean, I would say if you look at the AFC, I would say it's probably right now it's the Chiefs are definitely
here. I got it in front
champs.
of me. I got it in front of me here. So Pittsburgh is 11-1. The Chiefs are 11-1. The Bills 9-3. Browns 9-3. Titans 8-4. Dolphins 8-4. Colts 8.
I'm gonna tie them with the Bills. I think they're tied with the Bills. I think the Chiefs and Steelers are head and shoulders, and then you have those two teams. But a funny aside, and I know even some of my friends will say this to me after they listen to the show, that I throw in stuff kind of out of left field. Well, this one's going to be one of those things. I actually have started the season in Madden with the Cleveland Browns. So just throw that out there for a gamer.
Hey,
what the heck? So what do you think about him? I mean, they're definitely playing really well with Baker Mayfield at the helm.
Now it doesn't. The defense hasn't been great. They are giving up the most points. It's actually very interesting. they've given up 15 more points than they've scored, and they're 9-3. So that means that they've obviously won a lot of close games, and um, it, the defense seems good enough, but we have to also remember that the opposite division they've played against has been the NFC East. So that is partially the reason why you see Pittsburgh at 11-1 and Cleveland at 9-3. I think Baltimore has quite a few games against those NFC East teams coming up. So I think you might see the Browns fall back to earth a little bit here. I'd be interested to see who their game with the Ravens next week. That should be a very good one. As far as what team they are in the AFC, I don't think they're better than Chiefs. I don't think they're better than the Steelers. Believe it or not, I don't even think they're better than the Titans. I just think the Titans may not have I don't know, but when losing at home, there's not really a big excuse to put them above the Browns. But for some reason, I don't really trust Baker Mayfield to win them any big games. But they've won a lot of close games. So
I agree with that.
If they can continue doing it, hey, then they'll be up there playing against the Chiefs or the Steelers maybe in the AFC Championship game. But hey, we never thought that they would be 9-3.
No.
I think both of us may have had them at the tail end of the playoffs this year, but definitely not that far. So,
well, Derek, this controversial topic is gonna make a lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings, but the bottom line is the Philadelphia Eagles football coach Doug Peterson, who is probably on the hottest seat in the NFL right now, and I mean it is burning up. As the Eagles have 3 wins and 1 tie. If they lost that game, they would have no ties. They would have 3 wins, and that would be it.
Yeah.
But anyway, they actually announced today that they're going to be starting rookie Jalen Hurts on Sunday. So, what? I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, what are your feelings first, though?
I wonder if it was too late. I mean, I watched some of the Packers and Eagles game this past weekend, and he looked fine. Definitely seems like, and maybe that's because he didn't have a game plan set up for him, but it definitely seemed like he looked to run a lot more than he did pass. So I'm sure stuff will be in place. But I mean, 15 interceptions for Wentz. He only had 1 plus or 1 more touchdown than he did interceptions. So. And he just didn't look that good this year. 57% completion percentage. Honestly, I mean, I don't see that what a place to throw him into is against the Saints, but at least it's not at New Orleans. But that's almost a must win for them. They go to Arizona then the following week, and then at Dallas and home to Washington. So this is almost a huge game. So what does it mean for the future for Carson Wentz? I guess it really depends on how Jalen Hurts plays. And I guess more you can't expect them to beat the Saints. They're just not as good, or maybe even at Arizona. But if he comes out and wins at Dallas and home to Washington and plays well, hits his open receivers, doesn't throw the ball wide or into the ground or high for an interception, doesn't turn the ball over, you may think that they may move on. They may move on to Jalen Hurts being the guy and focus on really making their offense a run-first offense, which I feel like they should have anyways, because Miles Sanders really does not get the ball as much as he should. But and then what does that mean for Carson Wentz? I don't know.
It's really open. I gotta laugh.
Open-ended.
It's kind of sad because Howie Roseman is very arrogant to think that taking Jalen Hurts with that pick in that spot, when you had many receivers on the board, and you do that, you are basically telling your fan base that we're going to have a quarterback controversy. And here it is, because Carson Wentz is going to be shown 5,700 times on the sideline on Sunday afternoon. And again, listen, like your sister Lindsay said, and we appreciate her and her husband's input, and they always give us great feedback. The bottom line is Carson Wentz, whether he's overrated or not, he didn't get the help this year he really needed with receivers. Like you said, they dropped balls. He got sacked too much, so he didn't get the ball out of his hands enough. But I think it should be an open competition next year. If Peterson's gone, a new coach, let him fight for it, because if he goes somewhere else and that man even gets his team to the playoffs, Eagle fans better remember that. I'm sorry that I think a lot of people gave up on him, and my brother, who's a huge defender of him, will never give up on him, and he hopes he wins somewhere else. So it's just a sad situation, and of course it's happening in Philadelphia, because this is what happens in Philadelphia sports. Sometimes these things happen. So but be more time. Go ahead. Do you have more to say about it?
Yeah. I don't think, and I think we talked about whether Peterson was on the hot seat at all. I think he's at least winning a Super Bowl, giving him a little more rope a few years. That's a good point. Hey, maybe let them play it out, because, and you're right, they really haven't been fair in terms of what they've put around Carson Wentz, and that the receiver. I mean, back with Mike, we talked about the receiving core that they have out there. They just finally got Alshon Jeffrey back, who was one of the key contributors over the past few years for them. Zach Ertz just finally came back. And, I mean, they actually looked pretty good in the first drive against the Packers, but then after that, it kind of fizzled. Now, is it partially play calling? Is it partially just they don't have the receivers that can separate themselves? I thought with the nice combination of Ertz and Goddard that you could get away with some receivers who couldn't necessarily break away, but it should be interesting. It should be interesting. I would definitely hope they won't draft another quarterback this year. So if Wentz were to go somewhere else, I know you mentioned maybe somewhere like the Colts and go back to his old offensive coordinator. If Phillip Rivers, who knows what's going on with him, but hey, I guess we'll see. Things are definitely up in the air, and it doesn't seem like the Eagles are going to be the one representing the AFC East in the playoffs this year. So we will move on to our next fill in the blank. So we're going to jump to baseball this time for our final two. And a couple nice trades so far by the Los Angeles Angels getting in play. The Los Angeles Angels trading for both Jose and Raisel Iglesias, Joe, is...
Well, I said interesting. And I'm going to base that on saying that they needed a shortstop and they got a veteran. Now, he's probably not the best one out there. Didi Gregorius is going to land somewhere. He's going to hit better. And he's probably a better fielder. But you didn't end up getting a bottom dweller that just plays the field, right? They had Andrelton Simmons. He wasn't really that good. So Raisel Iglesias is a really good closer. And the numbers prove it. He was a Cincinnati Red. I'm not sure what the Reds are doing. They're kind of stripping down the team, it looks like, in a way. But maybe they take a run at another closer here, but don't spend a lot of money, I don't think, in Cincinnati. But Iglesias is going to make the Angels better because Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon are going to hit. If they find one more batter in the lineup, it's going to be huge. And Iglesias is going to win those close games for you, those one-run games. He's going to close them out. So Good job, Angels. That's a
Hey,
really
um, well, I said it's a start. It's not. It's definitely not far enough that they. I mean, their bullpen was a mess. I mean, their entire pitching staff was a mess last year for the
right.
Los Angeles Angels. So it's a start. Now I know Alderton Simmons, I believe is his name,
John
is who
Simmons. Yeah.
was there. Great
Mhm.
defensive shortstop. Maybe Iglesias is more of an offensive shortstop. So I don't know if that might kind of cancel out since you have to assume Simmons isn't coming back. But obviously now Iglesias, they traded a right-hander No Ramirez, and a player be named later. I don't know too much about Ramirez, but um, Iglesias is he's a fireballer. He's probably going to step right into the closer's role for the Angels, but um, like I said, it's a start. And I had, or both you and I actually both had, Trevor Bauer going to the Angels on a small, or not a small, a 1 year contract. It'll be
But
very
happen.
large. And if that can happen, yeah, maybe then you have another bat come in, and all of a sudden the Angels are starting to look like a serious team in the AL West. Um, you did mention what does this mean for what does this mean for the Cincinnati Reds? We talked about we really liked their team. They just couldn't quite hit. Uh, against the Braves in the playoffs, but they had a good 1-2-3 with Castillo and Sonny Gray, who they are reportedly looking to potentially move Sonny Gray now.
I mean,
They non-tendered Archie Bradley, who they brought in. It was
good arm. Yeah.
an extra closer / ninth inning option. I don't know what's going on with the Cincinnati Reds. Do we think?
I mean, they just signed Moustakas last year.
Yeah,
Um, they were
big
tied to
contracts.
Didi. Yeah, they were tied to Didi last year. Um, they're puzzling unless they want to rebuild. If they trade Nick Senzel, remember that name? He was
Mm-hmm.
in the JT Realmuto talks, I guess, last year before the Phillies got him. Senzel's a really good player. I think they're waiting for him to hit more, but he's really young too. I want to say he's probably like 25, 26 now, though. But um, Derek, unless they can land Trevor Bauer, I'm not sure. They could get a couple pitchers on the fringe, but that was the one thing I was going to say. We know what did I say in college football? The playoff runs through Tuscaloosa. The MLB all season runs through the city of New York, and honestly, we're not talking about the Yankees here. So if Alderson and Cohen say, "Oh, let's get Trevor Bauer on a 3 to 4 year deal," you're telling me Trevor Bauer is going to turn that down? And what he likes to do in the off season with media, and he has a big conglomerate I've heard, and he does all kinds of YouTube stuff. Trevor Bauer's like an entity. He's not just a pitcher. Like he's also very polarizing because he doesn't always say the right things. He's very like off the cuff. So in New York can be interesting. But I want to tell you, if me and you are right about that, Phil said he lands in Cincinnati. I'd say those are the three teams that I'd see right now. Cincinnati, New York, big start over, and also the Angels. I wouldn't bet against those three teams right now for Bauer. He's going somewhere and he's going to make a difference wherever he is.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, the Angels need to do more. And again, not sure what the Reds are going.
Yeah,
for
the Reds,
here, but
and back to that, the Reds are going in a way different direction.
Yeah,
they're just like out of control with what they're doing. We do have one more topic. He is also in Major League Baseball, as you said earlier, and the best available non-tender players. Well, I don't know about you. I got 5 of them down here because they can all make a difference. But tell me about what you're thinking when you saw the non-tender list.
do you want to explain first what it means for a player to be non-tendered?
Sure, because it took me a while to understand this. Um, Basically, right now in the off season of Major League Baseball, to fans out there that don't really follow the sport, you have a period where you can go to your players as they're still a part of your organization and say, "Here's a contract. If the player turns it down, then you can then have a chance to say to them, okay, we're gonna let you test free agency, which when you non-tender them, that's kind of what you're doing. If you tender them a contract, then they're gonna, like Chris Bryant, for example, nobody thought he was gonna be tendered a contract. And the Cubs go and tender him a contract.
Yeah.
So are they trading him? Maybe they want more pieces. Probably, I would think so. But yeah, that's pretty much what the non-tender player is now. And like I said, there's a bunch of names. I think there was about 50 to 100 names, right? But
there's a lot of good ones out there. I mean, so to answer the fill in the blank question, the best available, I would probably go with Eddie Rosario, out of who was a pretty big shock that he got cut.
Definitely.
And he's been great out in Minnesota the past few years. In fact, he got some MVP votes, I believe. He finished in 18th last year and 17th this year. So last year he had 32 homers, 109 RBIs. If you're worried it's just 1 year, he had 27 homers in 2017, 24 homers in 2018, 32 in 2019, and 13 this last year. So probably on the verge of about 30. So very good left fielder he seems to play, though I assume he could probably play right field as well. So anyone looking for a left-handed outfield bat with some power, tiny bit of speed, Eddie Rosario is open, and it'll be that's someone who could fill into the even the 5 spot maybe in the lineup and potentially bring home a lot of runs. What's some? I say I know you had 5, but do you want to throw out a couple other names, Joe?
Well, just to touch with Rosario real quick, I could see him in Washington. He makes a lot of sense with Soto and those guys because they just lost Adam Eaton. I just found out he's a White Sox. Mm-hmm. Of course, the White Sox are.
Can Soto play center field? Do we know?
You know, he's not that fast.
No.
I wonder if they were trying to make Trey Turner though into a center fielder because he's fast. So that would make sense. Now that's just me just spitballing here. I don't know who else on the roster that they're not that good, but they somehow hit better than anybody else usually. Like they got some good hitters, but I don't know. Rosario makes sense out there in Washington. I thought of Hanser Alberto, infielder. I think he was in Oriole. He's one to watch out for. He hit pretty decent average.
Mm-hmm.
He can play shortstop and third base. Archie Bradley, you mentioned him, the closer from Cincinnati. Yeah. He's a really good arm. I mean, he's like, I've been licking my lips.
Let me guess where you want him to go, Joe.
Well, we can't get Liam Hendricks or Brad Hand. I must be crazy not to think my Phillies might get him, right? No.
That's not a bad pick. Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad pickup.
He would do great anywhere he'd be. They say he's a really fun guy, just a lighthearted guy. So Archie Bradley. No, Derek, I'm going to surprise you. I don't think the Phillies get Archie Bradley. I want the Phillies to get David Dahl, who a lot of people don't know that name, but he's an outfielder from the Rockies. A lot of people talked about him. Former GM of the Rockies, who had him as a youngster, Dan O'Dowd, who's on MLB Network. I love listening to that guy talk baseball. He seriously said he would be a perfect fit in Philadelphia because you can move Hazley to left field and you can have Dahl in center with Harper and right. You have a great defensive outfield. And you also will have Dahl hit because the guy can hit when he's healthy. Problem is he hasn't been healthy. He makes sense in Philly. He makes sense in a lot of places, though. Kyle Schwarber is the other name I'm sure you know. DH, left fielder, more the DH probably.
Yeah, now, is he someone who's going to be shipped over to the AL because he can't really play the outfield?
And he'll say that himself probably, unless you find first base to be okay with you. Maybe he plays first base, the bigger guy. he has such great potential. This guy can hit the ball, but he hasn't done it consistently in Chicago. He hasn't been able, and he was with Baez, Bryant, and Rizzo. Like those guys are usually really good. So you think that would help, but they're my guys that we tendered a contract to Vince Velasquez. He was a decent arm that I thought was on there as a starter. There didn't seem to be a lot of starters that I saw that was like really impactful.
No.
But you just wonder when one of these guys are going to go off the board because they're guys that are on the cheap. Like you're not going to spend a lot of money on these guys. So
I love the David Dahl option. He's been kind of talked up for a few years now, and never between injuries, and he just never really got going in Colorado. So you wonder if a change of scenery helps him out a little bit. Can play all three outfield positions.
Right, in a farm system that maybe I'm just not saying the Phillies. I'll put that on record. I'm saying that teams that don't have the greatest farm systems right now, you put them in the outfield, you might be able to trade a prospect away. Like that could happen with teams. You definitely. The Indians always need outfielders. I would watch them. They're another name to watch out for in that aspect. And the Yankees. We both know, Derek, growing up as not Yankee fans, and we have family members that are Yankee fans. We hear it all the time. They go and they spend the money. Well, I wouldn't be shocked if they go grab a Schwarber because he makes sense in their order and in their lineup, on their team. So this would be something to kind of keep an eye on. I have a very bold prediction. I think one of the top free agents, George Springer, JT Realmuto, Trevor Bauer, one of those guys will go before the weekend. One of those players are going to sign on the dotted line. And then
I'll start somewhere.
Right? And then the dominoes might fall. We might have some really interesting shows to do, in the next month or hopefully two, God forbid things aren't happening in January. That's going to be a real problem. But things are picking up, Derek. Things are picking up in baseball.
Absolutely. And so that'll finish off our headline and fill in the blank show. I don't know if we did too good a job filling in the blanks, but but we are going to continue. We got a great response for our first top 5 video. So we are going to throw out another top 5 list this coming week. We're going to go on Friday, I believe, Joe. We're going to tape it and put it up probably on Friday, but this being on Tuesday. Now, so we'll probably put up the question on Thursday, but hey, feel free to answer it in this question if you're watching. But we are going to put up the top 5 sports records that are going to be we'll word it a little better, the most difficult to break. You think about ones that come to mind are Ricky Henderson's stolen base record, or Emmitt Smith's all-time rushing yards record, or I don't even know. Maybe if you even go to golf, like Jack Nicklaus's all-time championships record. But just some quick thoughts to end off the show, Joe, and we'll be talking again on Friday.
When you texted me that last night, and I read the message, and I said to myself, "Oh boy, I'm gonna have to research this one." But honestly, I will be so transparent to say that I'm not gonna come out with the obvious. Hopefully, I've also even thought of Olympics, because the Olympic sports, like, that's a big thing, and records are broken there. But I will give a spoiler. Even though it's top 5, I might have an extra 1 or 2 at least this time. I'm not going to go 11, Derek. I promise I won't go 11. But might have 6 or 7 for you. But, yeah, and we're really excited about that show every Thursday or Friday, depending when we do our show on Monday or Tuesday. We're just excited to share with you our thought, like our definitely our experiences. I think I brought up a new topic we could do in a couple weeks. Just different things that we all share, that we're all, that, we can all learn from each other. Basically, we can, like you said, movies are subjective. Well, world records may be subjective, but we all have different opinions on them. So, and we always want you to share on our page, share on the Facebook. We try to get our stuff out there. Thank you to our loyal followers, family and friends alike. And yeah, we'll be ready. We'll be ready for Friday. That's for sure.
Always a pleasure, Joe. So, as always, we are available on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Also follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Timeout Derek and Joe. And you can email us, timeoutderekandjoe@gmail.com. And we will very soon be talking about another place we have our shows up on. We are working on getting everything up on YouTube. So if anyone wants to watch us on YouTube, you can watch us there. I am in the process of moving most of the videos. It takes some time, but as always, I hope everyone enjoyed, and you will see us again on Friday with our records show. But as always, for Joe Azalina, I'm Derek Gano. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Take care and stay safe.